Today we have two unstoppable games that you probably wouldn't have thought were even possible within World of Tanks, especially with the vehicles that we have to showcase today. And so why not kick off today's video with the Chinese heavy tank that probably doesn't get enough credit for being a tier 10, the BZ-75, and this tank of course having the rocket boosting mentality is able to get into some really weird positions, and if you use it right you can have results like this one. It doesn't get some great attributes which we'll cover in today's video as well and showcase how you can overcome them and why you don't want to leave this thing do what it did in this game when it comes to playing at tier 10 in whatever tank you decide to play. So obviously the BZ-75 having the rocket boost allows you to get into some really cool positions that a lot of the other heavy tanks just wouldn't simply be able to do at the start of the game. And that is going to give you a wider opportunity to kind of play how you want to play rather than how you're forced to with the game, which gives you that flexibility and often flexibility being one of the biggest ways to kind of improve and get better at World of Tanks as a whole. Now you can see here what he's got himself into is a lovely little spot. This is kind of one of the positions that you can use. There is a one position or point of this position that can potentially be not so great, which is the hole in between here underneath the bridge. It is possible for people to hit you through there, but in order to do so you would have to get super lucky to be able to do it. Apparently we can't actually look at it, but essentially you can get hit through that bridge, I believe, in a very minute pixel. But either way it doesn't really matter because he's not worried about that guy, he's worried about the mouse who's decided he's gonna throw himself away, or at least nearly all of his hit points away, and yeah, it isn't looking too good for the mouse so far. And even when he's in this position he can back down into the water, stopping the mouse from being able to shoot down onto the lower plate, and in fact making it even harder for if he does manage to hit that it's going to bounce. So he's going to have to aim for the upper plate, and you never know, they can even bounce off of that. So obviously this mouse is a bit angry that he's lost like 70% of his hit points and wants to lose the rest of them. So yeah, he's going to find himself in a pretty dire situation pretty quickly. And there you go, he's back into the garage to pick a different tank and hopefully don't go as hard at another BZ in the next game. So that is why you don't push one of these things if you're guaranteed that it's in a nice little hold down spot. The tank has pretty decent frontal armor when it comes to the turret, and if you do use the armor and you keep putting obstacles like this ridge here into the way, then you can actually play this tank really well. And you can see here just playing the typical position like you can see. And with that, the IS-4 on his team decides that he's going to go in, which means that he's got one of two options. He can either remain where he is and get maybe one shot into the CC, which he does do, but at the same time what he's going to find is that if he doesn't help out the IS-4 and he gets taken out, all of the rest of the enemy team are going to come around as well and start to try and deal with him. But the FE4005 is probably the most dangerous here because of the fact that you can get one shot by it, or at least you can lose 90% of your hit points in a single shot. But he's just taking that full reload. Hopefully he can get one more into the CC. But as I said at the beginning of this game, this tank does not have the greatest DPM. You're looking at about 2,200, which to all intents and purposes puts it on the lower end of all of the tier 10 heavies. And that's really where you get the advantage of having the booster, so that you can at least be somewhat better than a lot of the other heavies in that regard anyway. But obviously TNH, he's got to try and decide which way he wants to go. If he stayed down on the bottom, the TNH could have got potentially some shots into him and it would have been the TNH who could be the problem. And then of course in taking out the TNH, the FV probably would have tried to push him and then retaken basically the rest of his hit points. So instead he pushes the TNH so that it's a 1 versus 1, and now the FV would have to push him, or at least push up to try and deal with him, at which point he's going to have a much better chance 1v1 than 2v1 and taking considerably more damage. But he pushes up now, trying to find out where this FE4005 is. And of course with the HE rounds that this tank gets, which are pretty darn good when you use them, but at the moment he's not decided to load them. They do have significantly higher alpha damage. I believe 840 is what you can deal with the HE with 90mm of penetration, which should be more than enough to actually go through the FE, and we're about to witness whether that is going to be the case. Can he go through? Yes, he can. 914 damage done, but with the FE having fired, he gets taken out subsequently, and then he gets hit by the TVP. But with this flank secured, there is still quite a bit of hit points left on the enemy team that he's gonna have to deal with. And when you're in this sort of situation, in a tank that isn't particularly the best in the game, it's certainly one of the average kind of heavy tanks in the game. It's good in some situations, but once again it's quite situational, and hence why this game has been quite good, because that situation was that it allowed him to be able to get hold down. People were pushing into him when he was hold down, but when you are in open places, the armor of this tank becomes significantly worse, and if people actually aim at you, yeah, you're gonna most likely take some damage. But either way, 8,000 damage has been done to the enemy team, but don't worry, because it's still not enough, with the enemy team still on 7,500 hit points and his team only being up by about 400, or one shot from pretty much every tank in the game. But he's got 1,000 hit points now to trade at the end of the game. But there's a Gorilla 15, there's a Char Future 4, and of course there's the Leopard ones that are on the other flank, and the E50 still left alive, and of course the artillery piece who's probably sat somewhere being a little rat. But he needs to get rid of some of these guys very quickly. Probably the target he might have been better off going for would be the Char Future, because of the fact that the Char is going to be the one that may even YOLO him, but you never really know. And he's going to have to try and get a shot on the Gorilla here. Yes, he can. There we go. And is the Char still reloading, or is he going to push the advantage that his teammate is just taken to be able to, for him to get? And of course he actually backs up, which allows his team to be able to get even more shells on this guy. But yeah, he gets ammo-racked in that next shot, picking up 10.3k damage, and certainly the enemy team throwing this one. Whether or not it is 100% down to the skill, I think it's a mixture of both skill and of course being in the right place at the right time. And yeah, you can have some crazy results like this. But generally, the DPM of this tank is so bad that getting 10,000 damage in it is really a massive achievement, because of the fact that it has about 2.2 thousand damage per minute as a base value, which when you boost it up, you're looking in the region of about 2.5 to 2.6 thousand damage per minute, and maybe slightly higher in some situations. But to be honest with you, with all of that being said, it's still going to take you 4 minutes of continuously firing every single time you reload to pick up 10k damage, which is pretty substantial amount of time. And when you're in a tank like this that is not got the best armor, and although it can be used on a ridgeline, yeah, you can have some issues when it comes to this tank. He does get super lucky there to actually hit the Leopard, not fully aimed, but of course he's got to go for it. There's no point holding the shot, because at the end of the day, the Leopard would have been far back behind the actual ridge by the time he'd actually fired, so might as well go for the shot. He's charging towards the old Leopard on the enemy team to see whether or not he can get a shot into him. Leopard's still up there, and he gets another one. Brilliant. Up to 11,500 damage so far. Can he get the rest of the damage on the Leopard? 500 on him, and there's also an E50 and an artillery that are still left up for grabs. But he is on a one shot, so all it would take is one singular shot, but it doesn't matter. The Leopard is gone. And there you go. 12,000 damage, putting this up there with probably some of the highest damage games that the BZ-75 has ever seen. But in this game there is still more damage to be had. That artillery, if you can get him, will take him to about 12,500 damage. But of course that relies on the artillery not looking the right way and potentially splashing him, which you'll find out in a second whether that's actually going to be the case. But what amazed me about this game was that it genuinely looked so fluid. There's lots of kind of movement. There was definitely some fights, good decision making to be able to get the damage, etc. And there you go, he picks up the 212A there and takes him out, picking up 12,500 total damage, but it's unlikely he'll get any more damage with the Foch B YOLOing over the hill to land on the opponent. And there you go. Wow, a really crazy game in the BZ75, and hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did when I watched this. So let's jump into the next replay, which is just as good but something a little bit different. And so of course this one is probably one of the weirdest games I've ever seen. This is the STRV 103B on one of the maps that you probably would never ever think would end up with a result like this. This is a map that is not intentionally very good for tank destroyers that rely on remaining undetected to be able to have amazing damage games. And of course, being on Paris, yeah, you're probably not used to seeing STRV 103Bs have good result for sure. Now this tank obviously has the opportunity to have some really insane games when you do use it in an aggressive fashion, which is what is happening in this game. But of course you can see here he's found himself a nice little Leopard 1 who he's not able to actually spot him because of the bushes in between. So the first great use of camo on a map that probably shouldn't be able to be using camo. But either way, the Leopard 1, is he going to give him the actual satisfaction of removing him? Yes, he does. And up to 2.2k damage already in probably one of the easiest fashions possible and imaginable when you're playing the STRV. But of course, this game is filled with quite a lot of TDs, and this game being a full tier 10 game means that there is 2 Grillas, a Foch B, a 268, and you're seeing a lot of light tanks on the enemy team. 4 light tanks, a 2 Manticores, an EBR, and a T100 LT. So a really weird matchup, and probably not one that you're commonly used to seeing either. It seems like this entire video is a bit of a weird one when it comes to World of Tanks. But it's great to see these sorts of things actually happening, and tanks like this having results like this on a map that they probably shouldn't be doing. But either way, the Grilla 15 is out in the open and he goes for the inner track. Can he get the actual inner track again? Can he do it? Yes, he can. There you go. And the Grilla 15 is about to succumb to the Leopard 1 result that just happened. And unfortunately for him, there's no escape from the STRV at this point. Even if he got it to repair the track, he would still be gone. And there he goes. Goodbye, Mr. Grilla, or at least one of the Grillas. And now it's time to use the speed of the STRV 103B to run away, because the friendly team, including the Jaeger and the Leopard 1, are severely outnumbered in the southern side of the map, and considering that the majority of his team are over in this location, it's time to relocate to support when they inevitably lose the southern side of the map. It's all well and good being able to use the STRV in an aggressive spot, but when you're up against 4, 5, maybe even more vehicles, no matter how good you are, you're probably not going to be able to win the game. But our friends in the Leopard have reappeared with a different vehicle, and the Leopard 1 here is kind of out in the open. He gets a couple into him, and this is really where this position right here can actually be a brilliant spot. The dynamic between him and his teammate in the light tank in the T100 who's spotting for him is actually really powerful, because essentially anyone that comes into the zone of control of the STRV is going to end up basically removed pretty quickly. And the Object 430U does appear. Now he's going to get spotted here, which is a bit of a problem because of course people like the Leopard 1 can now see where he is. But he's decided that it doesn't matter, he's going for the Object 430U, who he manages to pen and set on fire. And yeah, he's saying goodbye to the 430U there. But still, lots to go in this game. They're down by 4,000 hit points with a 268 who's just feverishly appeared. in the corner, but there's still some other vehicles left that he needs to deal with. He's going to go for the low health tanks. Obviously, when you're in this sort of game and you're trying to actually do quite well and maybe even potentially win the game, you need to remove as many of the tanks out of the game as possible so you can kind of focus down each of the tanks as they go. But the Object 452K that's recently come into the game decides he's going to YOLO in, and for God's sake, the low roll there, meaning he is on a decent whack of hit points, but STRV exposes a little bit too much of the side and then gets probably auto-penned in the side. This 452K is definitely overestimating the size of his vehicle, poking around the corner with his frontal drive wheel. And now it's down to the left to the 2 dynamic duo within this game. And there you go, the 268 does actually fire, and it almost looked like he was going to succumb to the same as the Griller. And oh dear indeed. The Object 268 gets tracked just like you saw with the other vehicles in this game. He's looking. Can he back up? Yes, he can. And there you go, he's safe for now. But there is a lot of tanks appearing from behind, and yeah, you're probably thinking there's no way they can win this game. The 268's about to come around that corner. Oh god, it's not looking good. Can he finish off some of these tanks? He needs to get in front of his teammate here to take some hits because he's got the frontal armor. Puts one into the T100 LT. The T100 LT finishes off the Leopard. The Leopard 1 comes around the corner. The enemy team are certainly throwing it at this point. It's only really the Gorilla that can be the biggest pain in the backside right now. But can he track him? Oh my word, yes he can. Is the Gorilla going to be able to get a shot? No. And not again. The Gorilla 15 falls victim to yet again the great marksmanship of our player here, locking them down. This is literally the pinnacle of what you can imagine by locking people down and using them to your advantage and essentially hiding from their gun whilst also being able to shoot them. So yeah, a perfect combination from, of course, the T100 and our friend here in the STRV. And is he going to finish him off? He lets his teammate finish him off with 5 kills per tank, picking up 10 kills between them and 12,000 damage on the STRV 103B, with the T100 LT actually getting taken out as he rammed the enemy T100. But I couldn't imagine a greater game to showcase some vehicles that literally don't expect to actually see, having results like this on maps that probably aren't the best for them and still coming away with results like this. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. If you've got any replays that are anything like this and you want to send them to me to have a look at, then feel free to send them to the email in the link below or in the comment section down below. And of course, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video coming very soon. Goodbye.